In this video, we're going to discuss the inclined plane lab. And on the inclined plane lab, we're going to complete 3 trials. 3 different angles. Now, on each trial, you want to most likely allow the ball to run several times, getting the distances and the time for each so that you can have multiple sets of data to average out the data. So I think that the trial should be 2 books for the angle, 4 books for the angle, and 6 books for the angle. Now, if that's too high, we can use 1 book, 2 books, and 4 books. Something like that. When we allow the ball to roll off the end, remember it's very important to just kind of push it to where it just starts from rest and then rolling down. Notice that the ramp is going to be at an angle. We are not measuring the flat part. This time we're measuring the long angled ramp. And we're going to look at 3 different trials, but we're going to want to take the data for each one of those trials multiple times to be able to reduce the error by getting an average. Then, on one sheet of paper, we're going to put a couple of graphs down. And these graphs are going to be, the data once again is going to be time and position along the x-axis, time, along the y-axis, position. And then we are also going to get what is called the velocity. For this 3 sets of data, we're going to plot a position time graph, and we're also going to plot a velocity time graph. Now, there will be 3 trials. So we will have one of the trials being this data for 2 books. And then another trial being all of this for, well, if you started with the 1 book, it'd be 1 book or 2 books. And then you would do all of this for the second trial, which will be either 4 books or 2 books, and then 6 books and 4 books. So we're going to get 3 sections of data plus 2 graphs. Now, for the velocity, we are going to what is called take the derivative of the best fit line. Take the derivative of the best fit line. And actually, it's not a best fit line. It is a best fit line, but it's really a best fit polynomial. Of the PT graph. So when we look at the PT curve, we're going to find out it's not a straight line, it's a curve. So when we get the equation, for PT, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like some number and then x squared plus some number x plus some number. In order to find the velocity is going to be based off of what is called the derivative. To take the derivative of this equation, we are going to take the 2 and move it down. So it'll be 2 multiplied by whatever number, and then an x, plus, and then the 1 goes down, whatever number we have. So that means in this velocity column, we're going to take 2 multiplied by the number from this equation, and then because this is x, it's referenced to this cell right here. So you will put the reference to the cell. You'll put the reference to the cell. So in this box, you would write, equals 2 times whatever number was there, and then times whatever the reference is here. Maybe it's C2, and then plus some number. Then the next cell would be equals 2 times the same number, but now times C3 plus some number. So this velocity going down is going to change each time, and we will explain why that changes each time. It has to do with the velocity is found on a position time graph by the slope of the line. But when you look at the slope of the line for a position time graph, the slope of the line, depending on where you are on the graph, is different. The slope of the line is constantly, of this curve, the slope of the line is constantly changing. So that means this velocity slope is not going to be the same. It's going to be determined by the time in which you are located on the graph. So that's why as you go down the column of velocity, the slope of the position time graph continues to change based off of where you are on the graph, what time you are on the graph. So we have to start with the equation from position and time graph. We have to take what is called a derivative, which is a calculus term for finding the slope of this line. And the way we do that is we drop the superscript out in front. This superscript was a 1, so when it dropped out, it was just a 1. And then it gets reduced. The x gets reduced by 1, so an x squared gets to be an x, and an x to the 1 just gets to be a constant. So now this x is our time variable. So now it's 2 multiplied by that number times C2, whatever the reference is of this cell. Maybe it's D1 or E8, but it's whatever that cell is. This is your time reference, and then you add that number to it. The important thing is when you represent position and time, we are using a best fit polynomial to the second power. We are not using a linear line. Our position time graph is not going to be linear as it was with a flat rail. The rail is going to be at an angle, so we will use a polynomial fit to the second power on the PT graph. Then you will take your data from your time, your data from your velocity, and you will plot that on a curve, and you will find that it involves a very straight line, And then from this velocity time graph, slope equals acceleration. The slope that you get on your velocity time graph is going to equal your acceleration. We will finally, there are some questions that we will answer, and what we will relate the questions to eventually is the slope of this, or I should say the angle in which the ball is rolling. We are going to relate our acceleration. We will relate the acceleration, and what we'll find is as that angle gets larger and larger and larger, the acceleration or the slope on the velocity time graph will also increase. It's important that at each one of the angles, each one of your trials, you time the ball rolling down multiple trials in order to get multiple data. And then we will take data on 3 different angles. I hope this helps in setting up the inclined plane lab.